Number 9. Ford Pinto. When gas prices doubled overnight in 1974, America needed a subcompact, and 400,000 families chose the Ford Pinto. It wasn't a luxury purchase or an aspiration. It was the most affordable Ford you could drive home when the oil crisis made every gallon of gas feel like a financial decision. No other subcompact in the country outsold it that year. Ford's internal cost-benefit analysis, later revealed through civil litigation, calculated the cost of modifying the fuel tank, which internal crash testing had shown could rupture and ignite in certain rear impact scenarios, against the projected cost of litigation. The modification? $11 per vehicle. That document became the most cited piece of evidence in American product liability law and gave the Pinto a legal legacy that no other 1970s car has approached. Before that document became public, 400,000 Americans drove one home in a single year and parked it in the same driveway where the full-size sedan used to sit. The Pinto is at number 9 because 400,000 Americans drove one home in a single year without hesitation. The decade's most practical Ford for the decade's most practical reason. It was cheap to buy, cheap to fuel, and everywhere you looked. Number 8. Ford Gran Torino. In September 1975, a bright red Ford Gran Torino with a white vector stripe appeared on American television screens as the hero car of Starsky and Hutch, and Ford noticed an immediate, documented spike in Gran Torino sales. The striped tomato became one of the most recognizable cars on American television. Ford produced 1,305 official Starsky and Hutch Special Edition Gran Torinos in 1976, the ultimate high school parking lot status symbol. If you didn't own one, you definitely knew the guy who did. The Gran Torino was more than a TV car. Through the early to mid-1970s, it served as Ford's mid-size volume seller, available in sedan, hardtop coupe, and station wagon configurations, competing directly against the Chevrolet Chevelle and the Dodge Charger. Total 1976 production reached 193,096 units, the nameplate's final year. The Gran Torino is at number 8 because no other Ford of the decade had its street presence reinforced by a hit TV show that ran for 4 seasons, and because the parking lot outside any American high school in 1976 contained at least one red Gran Torino owned by someone who had been watching all year. Number 7. Ford Mustang II. Ford built the Mustang II on a Pinto chassis, choked its horsepower down to 88, and somehow sold almost 400,000 of them in year 1. It was a massive commercial masterpiece and an enthusiast heartbreak at the exact same time. The oil crisis had made performance irrelevant overnight, and Ford read the room perfectly. Give buyers the Mustang name with economy car fuel consumption, and they would show up. They did. Everything else about the Mustang II is a different kind of documented record. The period reviews from Car and Driver and Road and Track that noted the base 4-cylinder produced 88 horsepower in a car that was supposed to be a Mustang. The enthusiast community that spent decades debating whether it deserved the nameplate it carried, and the specific disappointment of the buyer who had driven a 1967 Fastback and found themselves looking at a rebadged Pinto. The Mustang II is at number 7 because 385,993 Americans chose it in 1974, and because a car that sells that many units while generating that much debate is exactly the kind of Ford that defines a decade's contradictions.
Number 6. Ford Fairmont. In 1978, Ford introduced the Fairmont as the replacement for the Maverick and produced the most successful new car launch in Ford history to that point, with 460,981 units delivered. It outsold the original 1964.5 Mustang in its first year. Car and Driver called it "Ford builds a Volvo and it works." For a compact priced from $3,589, that was a claim the Fairmont backed up with genuine McPherson strut suspension, a clean interior, and handling that domestic compact buyers simply hadn't seen before. The Fairmont ran on Ford's Fox platform, the same rear-wheel drive architecture that 1 year later underpinned the 1979 Mustang and launched the Fox body era that American performance car buyers still talk about today. Anyone who has sat in a Fox body Mustang will recognize the Fairmont's dashboard because Ford shared it between both cars. The Fairmont is at number 6 because 460,000 Americans bought one in a single year, because Car and Driver compared it to a Volvo, and because the boring family box at the Ford dealer in 1978 turned out to be secretly building the foundation for everything the Blue Oval produced for the next 15 years. Number 5. Ford Maverick. Ford launched the Maverick with one brutal psychological weapon: a price tag of just $1,995. It was a domestic, bulletproof alternative to the VW Beetle that arrived exactly when gas lines started triggering panic across America. First-year sales approached the launch pace of the original Mustang. Total North American production across the Maverick's run reached approximately 2.1 million units. The 1973 oil crisis increased Maverick sales rather than hurting them. Buyers who had been driving full-size cars suddenly found the Maverick's fuel economy figures persuasive, and the car's 3-year reliability record by then gave it something the newest subcompacts lacked: proof. The Maverick was already proven when the crisis hit, and buyers who needed to downsize quickly chose it in numbers that confirmed the $1,995 promise was still working even at its second and third owners' prices. The Maverick is at number 5 because 2.1 million units is a production figure that builds one driveway at a time, and because the specific combination of price and timing it represented made it unavoidable on American roads for most of the decade. Number 4. Ford Country Squire. The Ford Country Squire was the family vacation car of 1970s America, a full-size station wagon with simulated wood-grain vinyl paneling, a 3-way magic door gate in the back, and enough interior space to seat 8 passengers with luggage filling the cargo area to the roofline. Sales peaked at 143,000 units in 1973, making it the best-selling full-size station wagon in the country. Every single kid who grew up in the 70s remembers the exact feeling of sitting in the very back, staring directly at the highway and the headlights of the cars behind them from that rear-facing third-row seat. The paneling was vinyl printed to look like wood, a detail buyers either didn't know or didn't care about because the visual effect communicated exactly what the price intended. This family had a station wagon, and it was not the base model. A modified 1979 Country Squire appeared in National Lampoon's Vacation as the Griswold family vehicle of choice, a piece of casting that confirmed what the decade already knew. The Country Squire takes number 4 because 143,000 families proved it was the ultimate road trip machine.
Number 3. Ford LTD. The LTD was a rolling living room. It was full-size American luxury for the working class, featuring a plush front bench seat, a V8 engine whose heavy idle you could feel right through the steering wheel, and a highway presence that screamed pure comfort without the Lincoln price tag. Through the first half of the 1970s, the LTD was one of the most common full-size cars on American roads, moving hundreds of thousands of units annually in a segment that the oil crisis would eventually compress but could not immediately eliminate. The LTD's interior was built to a specific post-war American specification: a bench seat in front, a bench seat in back, a reliable V8 under the hood, and an overall presence on the highway that communicated nothing about performance and everything about the specific American comfort that the decade's buyers were still willing to pay for. Its Country Squire wagon gave families the same platform with cargo space. The LTD is at number 3 because it was the Ford that American families bought when they wanted the best Blue Oval available, and because tens of millions of Americans grew up riding in one from the back seat. Number 2. Ford Granada. Ford's pitch was pure audacity, what looks like a Cadillac but is priced like a VW. American buyers answered with 548,784 purchases in 1976, the ultimate 1970s illusion of fake luxury on a budget that 500,000 Americans bought into without a single regret. The car it was being compared to, the Cadillac Seville, introduced the same year, cost considerably more. Ford's marketing had correctly identified what the mid-1970s American buyer wanted: European styling references, a sense of luxury, and a price that didn't require a payment plan that outlasted the marriage. The Granada's underpinnings were derived from the Maverick Monarch platform, and period road tests noted this with the restraint of reviewers who understood the marketing was doing a job the engineering hadn't been asked to perform. But for the buyer in 1976 who needed a car that looked more expensive than it was and came with a Ford dealer service network behind it, the Granada was exactly the right answer. The Granada is at number 2 because 548,784 Americans bought one in a single year, and because the specific promise it made, Cadillac appearance at Volkswagen prices, was the most effective sales proposition any Ford made in the decade. Number 1. Ford F-Series. The Ford F-Series entered the 1970s as the best-selling truck in America and exited it as the best-selling vehicle in America, a transition that happened during the decade when American buyers began deciding in permanent and accelerating numbers that a pickup truck was not just a work vehicle, but the primary daily driver for an entire segment of the American population. Through the decade, F-Series sales climbed from strong to dominant, establishing the pattern that would make the F-150 the most purchased vehicle in the United States every year from 1981 forward, without exception. The F-100 and F-150 configurations of the decade gave American contractors, farmers, tradespeople, and rural families the inline-6 and V8 engine options that ran for hundreds of thousands of miles without asking for much in return. XLT and Ranger trim packages began moving the truck toward the comfortable daily driver that the following decades would confirm as the dominant American vehicle. The 1970s was the exact decade America stopped looking at pickups as mere farm tools and started using them as primary daily drivers. The F-Series took that cultural shift and turned it into a permanent dictatorship, becoming the undisputed king of American roads from that moment forward, period.